Which is better, the Motorola Moto G Pure or the Motorola Moto G Play 2021? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison of the Moto G Pure versus the Moto G Play. Now, the Moto G Play was launched in January of 2021, so at this point, it's really not even that old of a device. But very recently, in October of 2021, Motorola did launch the Moto G Pure. Now, these two phones actually do have quite a bit in common, and they have some differences as well, which we will be going over in this video, of course. But one thing I do want to make very clear is that these devices are being offered both factory unlocked, so that you can use them on any carrier, but in addition to that, both of these phones are available at the various prepaid carriers. And typically, if you get them directly through the carriers, you can get them at quite a bit of a discount, and very often they're even offered for free. I know that the Moto G Pure, I believe Metro has been promoting as a free phone if you switch in from another carrier. So that's just one example of the various deals that can be had with these devices. So I definitely recommend taking a look at the various links in the video description to get a better idea of what your various options are. But most importantly, both of these phones, even if you were to pay the full MSRP for them, are very affordable options. And of course, with that, you're going to be losing out on some features that you typically find with higher end smartphones, but at the same time, you're also getting a very good value. Now, something I do want to mention as well, as far as software goes, is that my Moto G Play 2021 recently did get the Android 11 update. So both the G Pure and G Play both have Android 11, which is definitely very awesome. However, Android 12 is now available, so technically they're both still a generation behind when it comes to getting the newest version of Android, but I suppose I'll take any update over nothing. But if you do end up getting these devices factory unlocked, these are the boxes that you will be getting with them, and if you do get these phones through a carrier, you might be getting slightly different packaging, so that is something to keep in mind. Of course, that really doesn't have anything to do with the actual phones themselves, but with all that said, let's now compare these two devices. Now, as far as MSRP goes, the Moto G Pure features an MSRP of $159.99 compared to $169.99 for the Moto G Play. So they're essentially the same price, with the Moto G Play being about $10 more. Now, both of these phones feature 6.5-inch displays. Both displays are IPS LCD at 720p. They both feature a PPI of 270. They both have a 20:9 aspect ratio, and they both have an 80.6% screen-to-body ratio. So as far as things appear from the front panels of the phones, they're essentially identical. You can even see that the earpieces for these two devices are in the exact same placement. The front cameras also have the water drop notches that house the front-facing cameras for these devices are identical as well, and both phones do have a decently thick bottom bezel. So it does seem like going from the G Play 2021 to the G Pure, Motorola carried over quite a few aspects of the design. Now, both of these phones do feature 5-megapixel front-facing cameras. Both phones feature 32 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Neither of these two phones have wireless charging, but they both do have fingerprint scanners. So we'll try out the Moto G Pure first. Fast and accurate. One more time. Definitely very quick there. So it is a very good and functional fingerprint sensor. We'll now try the Moto G Play 2021. Okay, that worked. So we do have very fast and accurate fingerprint sensors on both of these phones. Both of these devices also feature face unlock, so I do appreciate that we do have multiple methods for getting into them. Now, taking a look at the camera modules, we do have a little bit of a different design going from the G Play to the G Pure. Essentially, we have this more vertical format with the Moto G Pure versus this squared off camera module for the Moto G Play. But as far as the actual cameras go themselves, both devices do feature 13-megapixel main cameras and a secondary 2-megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode. So both of these phones do have portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras, which is good, but one feature missing from both of these phones is an ultra-wide-angle camera. So if you currently have an ultra-wide-angle camera with the phone you're using right now, and that's a feature that you enjoy having and find to be useful, then just know that you're not getting that here with either of these two phones. Now here's how things look on the camera app on both devices. This is with the main camera, and you can see that things appear to be pretty identical as far as appearance goes, and I would imagine that the cameras are essentially the same on both of these devices, so that is something to keep in mind. And then video recording also maxes out at 1080p for both the front and rear cameras for both of these phones. Now flipping around to the front-facing camera, you can see there's me. And again, pretty similar here, of course. I've also taken a variety of test photos and videos with both of these devices, and you can see samples from that in the reviews that I have for both of these phones here on the channel. But essentially, you should expect to get pretty much equivalent video and photo quality from the two phones. Now there is one small difference though. You can see in the photo settings, everything appears to be the same. But when it comes to video settings, we only have time-lapse for the Moto G Pure, which we also have with the Moto G Play, but this phone also features slow motion and spot color as well. So if either of those two features matter to you, then I suppose you should go with the Moto G Play. Now the biggest difference with these two devices definitely has to be the processor. Now both of these phones do feature 3 GB of RAM, which is pretty good for an entry-level smartphone, but the processors are different. So with the Moto G Pure, we have the MediaTek Helio G25 processor, compared to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 processor with the Moto G Play 2021. Now I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test with both of these devices, and that gives you a good idea of the differences when it comes to the processors here. But essentially with the Moto G Pure, I got a single core score of 133 compared to a single core score of 233 with the Moto G Play. And then you can also see the differences in multi-core scores for these two phones as well. And I've got to say, that's a pretty dramatic difference. So even though these two phones are pretty similar when it comes to MSRP, you are getting quite a bit more power when it comes to the Moto G Play. Now, of course, the companies that supply the processors for these two phones are different as well. Now, Qualcomm typically does have a better reputation than MediaTek, but MediaTek has been getting better and better with their processors, and it really depends on the particular processor for the type of performance you should expect. Now, the G25 in general is a lower end processor from the company, but it's certainly not the worst they offer as well. And then the Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 is also really nothing special, but you can see from those benchmark tests, it is quite a bit more powerful than what we're getting here with the Moto G Pure. So in general, I would expect to get more longevity as far as the phone not slowing down as time goes on with the Moto G Play compared to the Moto G Pure. But at the same time, the Moto G Play is not significantly faster than the Moto G Pure. So for either of these two phones, if you're looking to get a device that you just want to do kind of the typical smartphone tasks on, such as phone calls, text messages, occasional web browsing, occasional social media as well, but probably not much more than that, then either of these two phones will get the job done. But if you are someone that is constantly using your phone, whether it's for video editing, high performance gaming, the Moto G Play is still going to be a relatively slow device compared to the Samsung Galaxy S21, for example, which is, of course, a much more expensive phone than either of these two devices. Neither of these two phones would really even compare. So you do get what you pay for. But again, since it appears that the Moto G Pure is being offered as a free phone at many of these carriers, I suppose you're still getting a really good value. But when it comes to the differences with the two processors with these two devices, I certainly would go with the Moto G Play. Now, another downside of the Moto G Pure compared to the Moto G Play is the battery capacity. Now, on its own, the battery capacity that we're getting here with the Moto G Pure is certainly very generous because we are getting a 4,000 milliamp hour internal battery, but we're getting a 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery with the Moto G Play 2021. So I do appreciate that we are getting, of course, 25% more battery with this device. So that certainly is quite a bit more. But with either of these two phones, you should expect to get some solid battery life, and certainly you'll be able to get through an entire day of usage. And another awesome thing as well is that both of these phones do support 10-watt fast charging. That's certainly not the fastest out there, but again, for a very low-end device, I do at least appreciate that they do charge at up to 10 watts. Now again, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, software is pretty much an identical experience with these two phones, especially now that the Moto G Play 2021 has been updated to Android 10. So we're getting a pretty clean and refined software experience with both of these devices. So I definitely appreciate that. And in addition to that, Motorola has added in a variety of their own custom software features, which I do go into quite a bit of detail about in the various tips and tricks videos that I made for each of these devices. Now, neither of these two phones have NFC, which is pretty disappointing, especially since NFC is now more popular than ever before. That's the technology that allows you to make mobile contactless payments using Google Pay in a similar way that you can make payments like that using Apple Pay with iPhones. But if you don't do that already, then I suppose it doesn't really matter a whole lot, but I would have liked to see NFC with both of these devices. Now, as far as the hardware goes, I'd say quality-wise, it's pretty much the same with these two phones. They're both made completely out of plastic besides glass for the displays. And even though they are both made out of plastic, they both do feel very high quality in the sense that they don't feel cheap. Now, taking a look at the left side of both phones, they both have the same setup here with the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Then on the right side of both devices, we have volume up, volume down, and the power button. Then up top here in both phones, we have a noise canceling microphone and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And then on the bottom of the two phones, we have the microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. And then on the back of the two phones, once again, we do have plastic. There is a little bit of a different texture though. We have more of a flat matte gradient finish with the Moto G Play versus a wavier matte finish, which is of course also plastic with the Moto G Pure. I think both do look nice. I don't really have a preference for one over the other. It really just comes down to what you prefer personally. And then you can see too as well that the camera modules do have a different design, but in general, you're getting the same results either way. They're just configured a little bit differently. So from my experience with these two devices, I don't see any reason to get the Moto G Pure over the Moto G Play, except for two reasons. The first reason is that if you can get a much better deal with the Moto G Pure, then I would go for this over the Moto G Play. And especially if carriers are offering this phone for free, then I don't see a reason to not go with it. And then the other benefit of the Moto G Pure over the Moto G Play is that the Moto G Play already got one major software update from Android 10 to Android 11. So that's great and everything, but I'm not sure if they're going to give this phone any more major updates. So I don't know if it's going to get Android 12. Honestly, I would kind of doubt it. Whereas with the Moto G Pure, since this phone originally came with Android 11, I would say it's pretty guaranteed that eventually it will get Android 12. Now, is that going to happen anytime soon? I don't think so. It could even be up to a year until this phone gets Android 12, especially considering that the Moto G Play 2021 came with Android 10, even though Android 11 had been out already for a decent amount of time, and then just now got Android 11. So that is something to keep in mind. But in general, there's really nothing about the Moto G Pure that makes it better than the Moto G Play. The Moto G Play has a better processor, it has a larger battery, and beyond that, these phones are, for the most part, very identical. I wouldn't be surprised if 95% of the internals with both of these phones are completely the same. But I hope you enjoyed this comparison of the Moto G Pure versus the Moto G Play 2021. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a great day. Bye.